Welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us in this third presentation. Just maybe to refresh our memories, this is number 3. In the first 2 I dealt with the issues surrounding architecture and particularly the kind of complaints one is hearing about and reading about social media. And the first lecture I looked at the South African context, the one I'm most familiar with, and in the second one it was to go see whether those issues were in fact not just uniquely South African but were in fact global. And it turns out, yes, indeed they are. In this lecture, I want to explore whether architects are in fact alone on these issues. I need to make it clear that this is not a complaint piece and it's not an industry report. It's really the beginning of a diagnosis of something I suspect is much larger, a structural shift in what it now means to be a professional. So we start with a provocation, and the statement is self-evident. Yes, architects globally are complaining. We've dealt with those issues. The question is, are they right? Or is this something bigger? I have to tell you that having considered this thing for some time, this is not about the profession of architecture. That's not where the problem lies. That may be a comfort to some, albeit a small one, inasmuch as the blame on the profession, by implication, the blame on professional institutions, voluntary associations, registration councils, and so on, is misplaced. This is actually a professional challenge, globally, across the board. And it lies in this, let's call it an old social contract. I was going to say unwritten, but in fact it was very much written. It was written in legislation. But it was based on a 20th century professional model which recognized scarce expertise, long periods of training, with a suggestion that that investment would provide long-term security. There was an autonomy of judgment. You were viewed as a professional, and as such, your judgment was not questioned. There was an issue of social trust. You were seen as a professional. You were recognized as a professional. That meant something. And all of those enabled you to some extent to have the power to set fees. In exchange for this responsibility, society offered as part of its deal authority to you, stability around the marketplace, a degree of social status, and time sovereignty. You were not necessarily under pressure. It was recognized that what you were doing was valued and might require a degree of time input beyond simply a 1-second back of the envelope solution. That contract, I want to tell you, is broken. Has been broken for some time. We haven't seen it. We just haven't recognized it. But it has been broken for some time. And it now has resulted in a situation where trust has been replaced by audit, judgment by deliverables, and your vocation by procurement. Perversely, liability has been left in the hands of the professional, almost without fail. In the media comments and some of the surveys that I quoted in lectures 1 and 2, the complaint was diminishing income with increasing liability. The market has been quite happy to drive fees down, but to in fact leave the liability associated with being a professional in the hands of the professional. So the current new model is the professional as a service vendor. You deliver a service, goods and services, in the same way as a pencil manufacturer or the deliverer of a motor car for the traffic service. Your service is benchmarked. You have to tender for it. It's managed by KPIs, and you're left absorbing all the institutional risk. That's where we're at. It's not a good model. It's a new model. It's not a good model. So where do we go? Well, the first thing is to understand why architecture fails at first. It is, in essence, the proverbial canary in the minefield. It was the first to have its fees commoditized. It was the first to see liability rising in the back of more and more regulation, more and more red tape, more and more procedures related to local authorities, plans, approval, zoning, departures. It has seen its authority fragmented across new entrants into the space, and perhaps most of all, its outputs are highly visible. But it's not just architecture. Yes, it's the canary, but it's not just architecture. It's the same stage in different costumes. Lawyers are complaining. Their fixed fees, their contracts are being overtaken by AI. You can go into AI and you can tell AI what sort of a contract you want, it'll give it to you. Probably in some cases better than what a lot of lawyers can do. Medicine's complaining. Protocols over judgment. 15-minute consultations. Lots of forms to fill in. Less time to, in fact, engage and take a proper client history, for example. Academia is complaining. There's a culture of audits, precarity, publish, publish, publish. Even the tech IT guys are complaining, and they're complaining about burnout under agile regimes. The push to stay ahead of that tech invention wave. So this is the paradox we face. And why I say it's a lousy model. The professional is still responsible. More so. The professional is still highly trained, perhaps even more so, continuous professional development. The professional is still liable, even more so. But the professional is no longer empowered. These things have been imposed, and the professional now has to somehow eke out a way of delivering without going under. The complaint is about poor conditions. Those conditions relate to the way they are procured, the services are procured, client to architect, but it's also poor conditions within the practice. This is a mismatch. The poor conditions in the practice is a weakness, but it's a result of a mismatch. It's a mismatch between responsibility and control, where moral commitment, responsibility, meets market extraction, no control. There are some professions, and it's interesting to actually look at these, who are so-called protected professions, for now. And those professions that have physical inability, dentistry, orthodontistry, back surgeons, specialist medicine, extreme scarcities, AI infrastructure, and curiously enough, asymmetric risk, merger and acquisition law, cybersecurity. Professionals working in those spaces are still operating under the old social contract for now. At what point does that start disintegrating? So the question is it a business model failure or structural failure? And I want to emphasize this because what I'm reading in social media is architects complaining about themselves, to themselves, and pointing fingers at government, at municipalities, at property developers, etc., etc., etc. It's the institute's fault, it's the registration board's fault, it's everybody's fault. This cannot be fixed by things like billing tweaks. It's not even going to be fixed by changing laws. Okay? There is a structural failure. Some of that is manifest in an educational misalignment. It is something that the profession has been complaining about for decades. I can remember from my time as president of the Institute, architects complaining about the young architects, graduates not being able to fit into practice. It's not going to be solved by dealing with registration categories or value-added services, because the lowest price now currently overrides the best judgment. There's the fault line. Price is valued more than judgment. Someone once said, you know everything about the price of everything, but nothing about the value. And that's where we're at. So when architects are making the comments they're making, it's a signal. It's a signal that the bargain is broken. And that then begs the question, do we still know what professions are for? And if the answer to that is yes, what does that future look like? It's not the old one. It's not the current model. It's something different. And what we will need to do is very rapidly unpack what that is and make those structural adjustments in order for this profession to continue delivering what it's supposed to be delivering. We'll explore more of that in the next lecture. Thank you for watching. Please, if you'd like, tick the like box and hit the subscription. It does influence the algorithm that determines where these kinds of postings occur, and I would like to get this exposed as widely as possible to as big an audience as possible, so that we can enlarge the debate. Thank you and goodbye for now.